How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League discussion video. Today we're revisiting a topic that you guys seemed to enjoy a long time ago. A few days ago, we reached the 1-year anniversary of my favorite player on every team video. Since the league has changed a lot since then, I figured it would be fun to see how different my choices are as well as yours. I'll be sure to compare my new picks with my past choices too. This video is pretty straightforward. It's all my opinion with personal bias and everything, so don't get triggered and let's get started, I suppose. So first up, we've got the Atlanta Reign. In 2019, I loved Erster. That was my pick. He was such a fun guy to watch, and he was probably the best player on that team. But with him kind of riding the bench, my opinion has changed. My favorite Atlanta player in the 2020 season is Baby Bay. You know, I was never a huge fan of this guy before this year. I've never hated Baby Bay or anything, but he's always felt a little overhyped to me. People always had such high praise for the guy, but more often than not, I just couldn't see what the hype was about. In my honest opinion, he wasn't all that good on San Francisco, and he was kind of an Erster's shadow in 2019. He seemed like that guy that was only ever amazing before the league, but this year has kind of changed that opinion, and that's what puts him over the top for me. This year has definitely been a booming success for him. With Edison and Sharp joining the team over the offseason, I kind of expected Baby Bay to pretty much be permabenched for the rest of his life, basically. But right from day one, he's proved me wrong. His veteran status and chill attitude has helped guide his team a lot so far. He's had this certain presence to him this year. The hits game prowess of his has been in full effect. In my opinion, this has been his best year in the league, and that's quite impressive. He's not getting any younger, you know. He's not even in his prime anymore, but he's having an above average year in terms of Baby Bay standards. I'm super happy with the results he's put up so far. I'm proud of him. The Boston Uprising. So last year, my favorite player was Fusions, and I nearly went with him again this year because I love that guy, but there's a certain person who has surpassed him for me. My favorite Boston player this year has been none other than Jerry. I'm gonna be honest, the second Boston signed this guy, I think most people knew he would be a meme. With a name like that, there was no way he wouldn't instantly be worshipped. Jerry is my favorite purely for the memes. He's one of the biggest memes in my Discord server this year. Everybody's a Jerry lover over there. He's a silly guy. Who can forget when he made snowshoes out of tin foil? That was genius. Or how about the time against the Outlaws where Brennan Sideshow kept yelling, "Oh my word, Jerry, Jerry, what are you doing?" That time he fell off the map was absolutely priceless. These are the types of moments you never forget. I appreciate Jerry for the entertainment both through his gameplay and the memes. The Chengdu Hunters. Oh man, this is a hard one. There really haven't been many bright spots for them this year. So you know what? I think I'm going to stick with the same person as 2019. My favorite player on the Hunters is still Jinmu. Whenever I watch the Hunters, he's the guy I consistently depend on to keep me interested in their games. His Genji and Pharah have continued to be solid. He's fun to watch. There's not much else to it. Through the little good and lots of bad, he usually finds a couple of ways to stand out. The Hunters have greatly depended on him this year, and I'm scared to think about how much worse they could be without him. The Dallas Fuel. In Season 2, my favorite player on the team was Note. He might not be the most flexible player in the world, but he's always been a great guy. But this Fuel team has undergone some major changes since that video, and I'm ready to make a change as well. If you saw that video, then you probably already know where this is going. My new favorite player on the Dallas Fuel is Gamsu. Forget the Fuel. Gamsu is one of my all-time favorites, period. I love this guy, and I always have. Gamsu's very essence screams positivity. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this guy get tilted or angry. He's always had a smile on his face whenever I see him. He's a very down-to-earth person who loves nature and his pets, and while he isn't quite as good as he used to be, Gamsu is still a reliable main tank player who has good consistency and flexibility. He might not be the most entertaining person on the roster, but he has other qualities that more than make up for it. The Florida Mayhem. In Season 2, it was all about Fate for me. He's a former Valiant player that I've always respected and appreciated the play of, but this year a young star has taken his place. My favorite Season 3 Florida player is Gargoyle. There's something about the way he's played this year that I really appreciate. Last year he showed flashes of potential in Stage 4, but I wasn't sure how he'd do on the Sigma or if he had to play more Diva, but early on, he made those doubts completely disappear. I'd argue he's the most consistent player on this Florida team. He's been a big-time contributor on this Florida team through his stellar Sigma play. There's not much else to say about him. He's such a good player who exemplifies what it means to be a high-tier Overwatch League off-tank. There's very few off-tank players on the planet that I'm taking over Gargoyle. The Guangzhou Charge. This is one of those teams where I had a hard time making up my mind. I could go with Shu again, or maybe Neptuno, or Nero. There's a ton of likable players on this Guangzhou team, but the man I'll be going with this time is Happy. He's picking up right where he left off last year. He's been straight up popping. Happy is always a real treat to watch. He's one of the most talented hits game players we've got, not to mention that he's an elite sniper and duelist like few you'll ever see. And what's great about Happy is he always elevates his play every time the rest of his team does. It's been especially relevant this year in particular. As Guangzhou have improved these last couple of months, so has he. In the past, there have been moments where Happy has suffered from streakiness, but that really hasn't been the case in Season 3. He has showcased a higher level of consistency overall. Random cold streaks really haven't held him back. That was always the thing that bothered me about Happy before, but now it's not an issue and he's a more well-rounded DPS player. The Hangzhou Spark. With them, I always seem to suffer from the same problem. They have a lot of underrated players that I really do like. Last year I went with Gushui for his Insane Winston, but because he's been stuck on Orisa more often than not, he really hasn't been all that fun to watch. IDK is also in a similar position because we don't get to see his Lucio as much, but there is a certain someone who joined the team recently that I adore. That's right, I'm talking about Architect. Now that he's off the shock, I can finally select him. Right from the moment he joined Overwatch League during the inaugural season, I have greatly enjoyed watching him. Architect is such an explosive player, and he has continued to prove that in his new home during the short tenure he's had there. The team has been going through some struggles as of late, but he's had his moments. Architect is extremely talented. Mechanics-wise, he is top-notch, and let's not forget about his flexibility. He can play countless heroes at the highest level possible. Architect is a god, straight up. He's one of my all-time favorites that I don't talk about nearly enough. But to be fair, the Shock are so loaded, and he was on the bench a lot, so there was never a reason to talk about him. But now he's free to wreak havoc once again, and I couldn't be happier for him. The Houston Outlaws. Well, no matter what, I'm picking someone different this year because Jake is retired. So to be honest, there's a few Outlaws players that have stood out to me this year. Meko has been great, Jexay's been a pleasant surprise. Both of them are kind of tied for second place though because one man does stand above them, and that would be Dante. It's a different year, but nothing has changed. He's still arguably the most reliable player on the team besides like Meko, let's say. Yet again, Dante has been on a tear. But unlike last year, he's been able to boast a wider hero pool full of heroes that he's more comfortable on. The Dante Tracer in particular is better than it's ever been before, and I think he's shown promise on the Echo as well. Dante is king. There's no other way to describe it. He's been the rock for well over a year now, and I respect what he does for this team. He helps them maintain that competitive edge that they probably wouldn't have without him. He's a solid OG player who is super chill. Great player and great guy. You gotta love Dante. The London Spitfire. With this being a completely different team, it goes without saying that we've got to pick a new favorite here. Last year I went with Fury, by the way, but this year I'm going with Glister. With this team being so young and so new, essentially, somebody needed to step up and be a leader, and I personally think that Glister has filled that role perfectly. He's been the playmaker this team has depended on time and time again. Whether it would be on McCree, Tracer, Ashe, or Widow, Glister is always a threat to your squishies. What I love the most about Glister, though, is his confidence. I remember hearing a quote from him a while back just saying something along the lines of, "I don't lose Widow duels." He has complete confidence in his abilities, and he backs it up, too. While never losing a Widow duel is a bit far-fetched, he definitely does win most of them, I can tell you that much. I'd absolutely consider him to be one of the elite Widow players in the Overwatch League. It's been a real treat to watch Glister this year, and I'm excited to see how far he could go in his career. To get us to the halfway mark, we've got the Los Angeles Gladiators. This is yet another one where I literally have no choice but to pick somebody new. Last year I picked Surefour, so yeah, we move on to somebody new now, and there's only one man that I'd even consider giving this title to. It's gotta be Space. I have a deep appreciation for Space for multiple reasons. For one, he did so much for my team for 2 whole seasons. 2, he's a phenomenal off-tank player. I would argue he's the best Western off-tank, and I'm sure many of you would agree with me, if not say that he's like at least top 2. Both in his Valiant and Gladiator years, he's always been the foundation of his teams. Through his consistent play and amazing flexibility, Space is always a threat to your team. To give a third and final reason for this selection though, Space gives off the chill vibes. It's similar to Dante. He just has that kind of persona to him. Space is the type of guy you'd want to hang out with, or duo with even, you know? I have so much respect for Space both as a player and as a person. It's hard to hate on the guy. Now for my favorite team. Let's talk about the Valiant. Last year I had agilities in the slot, so obviously it's time for a change up. It took me a month or two to warm up to this new version of the Valiant, but I've really started to like this roster a lot. I really like a lot of the players they have, and many of them have pleasantly surprised me even. But as of right now, I would say my favorite player on the Valiant is KSP. I had confidence that he would be a decent player this year, but I mean, holy moly, he has completely blown me away. I've said it multiple times this year, but KSP is having the rookie campaign of a lifetime. He's putting up superstar level numbers. The recognition he's been receiving this year is well deserved. I'm so grateful for the amount of work he's been putting in. I think I can speak for many when I say I had pretty low expectations for the Valiant, but KSP has more than given me enough reason to drastically heighten my standards. This guy pops off like every game. It's pretty ridiculous. He may be a rookie, but he certainly doesn't act like one. He's gone head to head with some very talented players this year, and he's held his own against pretty much all of them. KSP is a machine. When he's hot, the Valiant can compete with a fair amount of the North American teams. From a general standpoint though, he has been one of my favorite players to watch this year. He's a living highlight reel. Next up, we've got the NYXL. With this team still comprised of many of the same members from 2018, I can confidently say that Sabiobi is still my favorite player on the team. He might not play as much as he used to back in the day, but God, I love that guy. I have a lot of fond memories of SBB. I still remember watching him for the first time in the 2017 World Cup. I remember saying to myself, hey, that Sabiobi guy is pretty nuts. And let's not forget about the Season 1 Tracer magic. I still play back all of the amazing moments in my head all the time. I've always given him the nickname of Captain Clutch. He's the leader. He's the heart and soul of this team. He's always taken charge when his team needs him to. This especially goes for Season 1. He used to be the best Tracer in the world. Anybody else remember when he said that after beating Striker? Good times. Just from the nostalgia factor alone, I adore SBB. But that's not the only reason. Like with many other people I have on here, SBB is simply a great man. His character, his morals, his leadership, you won't find many other people out there on the planet who demonstrate such amazing qualities. He's a loyal man. He loves his wife very much. And of course, he means a lot to all of his teammates. New York just feel different when he's present in the game. How many times have we seen him get up out of his chair to give his teammates a high five or a pat on the back? How many times have we seen him just calm everybody down or call the shots mid-game? And how many times have we seen him be the hype man? SBB is the GOAT. I love him so much. The Paris Eternal. In Season 2, I went with Soon purely because I wasn't very attached to this team, and Soon used to be on my favorite team, so it kind of felt like the natural pick. But now Paris have transformed themselves, and I find them much more likable, so I'm ready to change it up. Now, I could just be unoriginal and go with Sparkle because he's hilarious and he's nuts at the game, but that's too predictable. Instead, I'm going with somebody who doesn't get enough love. My favorite Paris player is FD God. Literally. Right from week 1, I knew I was going to love watching him. After he carried against London that one time, I had high hopes for him, and he has not let me down yet. Week after week, he has done something that leaves me in awe. He's one of my favorite Lucios to watch. The boops are always nuts from him, and what's great is that he's not some Lucio one-trick. He's pretty flexible. FD God is a fantastic main support player who does not get enough appreciation. He's a stud, and he makes his country proud. The Philadelphia Fusion. I'll get right to the point. It's still Carpe. It's pretty unoriginal, but Carpe is my boy. That's just how it is. He's been keeping me entertained for 3 straight years now. Every time he plays, he does something crazy. It's nothing new. We all just accept it at this point. He's one of the best players in Overwatch League history, no question. His longevity is worthy of praise. To consistently be this amazing for this long is something else. He's consistently at the top for DPS stats, and you'll find him running the top of the leaderboard for all-time final blows. I have a soft spot for Carpe, and I think I always will so long as he doesn't have to play GOATs ever again. He's one of the most clutch players I have ever seen in my life. Not to mention that he has an absurd work ethic. He puts in a lot of time and effort to be one of the best, and he's always striving to improve. Carpe is a god. There's not much else to say. If he's on DPS, he's always fun to watch. This man takes care of business. The San Francisco Shock. As usual, there's a lot of likable personalities on this roster. There are so many amazing individuals, but I think I'm going to stick with Super as my favorite player on the Shock still. He might be a bench boy for the most part, but there's something about Super that I just feel drawn to. First off, his Reinhardt is still god tier. I don't care what anybody says. Not to mention that he is the team captain and leader of this team. He's very vocal and he's not afraid to speak up, and that is something I respect. And as a bonus, I just enjoy Super's personality. He's not for everybody, but I think he's funny. He loves to talk smack to other players and to his chat during streams, and I enjoy it from time to time. Not to mention that he just has some fun conversations in general with his chat. I remember seeing a comment on my 2019 version of this video saying that Super reminds them of that socially awkward kid who knows he is, but decides to embrace it rather than hide it. And to be honest, That's a pretty good description. Either that, or the kid with low self-esteem in high school who makes fun of people to feel better about himself. Transitioning over to the Seoul Dynasty, I am once again left with no choice but to choose somebody new. Fleta was my favorite back in Season 2, so for Season 3 now, I think my favorite Dynasty player is Slime. He might not get played that much, but I'm a big fan. He was a shining star for Vancouver in Season 2. The way he plays Lucio is truly special, but generally speaking, he has that aggressive playstyle that I love. Slime is never afraid to up the tempo or be the person to initiate. He definitely is one of my top 5 main supports to watch. The Shanghai Dragons. Last year, Guangzhou was my pick, and obviously we can't do that again, so this year it's going to be Void, and it really shouldn't come as much of a surprise. I've been hyping him up for a long time now. It ranges back to like 2019. In my honest opinion, he is the off-tank with the most impact this year. Statistically, he is out of this world, and it's not even a question. The sheer amount of participation along with the low death rate makes Void a god. There are very few off-tanks I have ever seen who can deliver consistency at such a high level. He might not be the flashiest player in the world, and he might not be perfect, but I always enjoy watching him. The Toronto Defiant. If you've been around the channel for a while now, I think you already know where this is going. Sorry Logix, I love you to death, but there's no way I could pick you for a second season in a row when Agilities is on this team. Brady is my favorite pro player of all time, so of course I was going to pick him. Agilities was part of the first pro game I ever watched, not to mention that he was a part of my favorite team back in the day, aka the Immortals. I've watched Brady grow so much as a player over the years. There are so many good memories I have involving him. During the Immortals days, it was always a real treat to watch him play Roadhog and Genji. I mean, he has one of the most famous Genji clips of all time after all while playing for Immortals. He's found success at every level while I've supported him over the years, and I wouldn't change witnessing that for the world. Whether he's good or trash, I will always have a special connection with Agilities, and nothing in the world will ever change that. The Vancouver Titans. Man, it hurts to think about how much this team has changed. In my 2019 version of this, Bumper was my pick. Can I get a big rip in the chat for Bumper? I miss that guy, and I'm sure some of you guys do as well. As for Season 3, I think I gotta go with Dalton as my favorite Titans player. A lot of people like to refer to him as Rookie Logix, and for good reason. Even before he joined the Overwatch League, Dalton was always a guy on my radar. I may not watch a ton of contenders because I really don't have the time to, but I've watched some of his matches before he joined the league on Second Wind and Gladiators Legion, and I've always been impressed by his play, and it has definitely translated over to the Tier 1 scene. I like Dalton a lot, and I'm excited to see how much he can progress as a player over the next year or so. And last, but certainly not least, is the Washington Justice. Like with the team before them, my old pick is a big rip. Back then, my favorite player was Sleepy. Since then, the Justice have undergone quite the transformation. They may not be the same happy and go-lucky team they used to be, but they do have some former Vancouver players, one of which is my main man Jono, who is going to be my favorite Justice player. It's not always easy for him to show it given the circumstances, but this man is elite. He's one of my all-time favorite off-tank players. He does a lot of the same stuff that Void has done. He's a very similar type of player. The ridiculous numbers he's capable of putting up are a stat lover's dream. He is one of the most consistent diva players I have ever seen. Jono has that high IQ. He's got a great Overwatch mind. Jono is love. Jono is life. Don't you forget it. And with that said, that is going to conclude my favorite player on every team list for 2020. Now it's your turn. Who's your favorite player on every team? Tell me down in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget that you can also follow my Twitter, join the Discord server, and become a channel member if you wish to further support me. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.